yeah, I suppose it's been really challenging for us. Every day I think we wake up hustling. There's no real clarity, I think, for us as an industry, which has been tough. And I think more so for an industry that doesn't necessarily operate with a large number of full-time employees, but more a lot of contract workers. And I think those freelance contract workers are the ones that are really, really hurting at the moment. And I would include musicians themselves in that. There are so many wonderful musicians, whether it's bands, whether it's solo artists, who are sitting at home, their only income is music. And unless they go and busk on the side of the road and hope that people are generous and provide them with some money, their full income's been taken away from us, from them. So yeah, I think it's certainly a challenging time for the industry. And my only fear is that a lot of our industry may have thought that 2020 is gone and things would start to get better. And my concern is that 2021 might be even worse for our industry than 2020 is. Obviously curfew, being in the entertainment industry, the time at which you entertain people mostly is after work, and after work is from 6 o'clock onwards. The curfew does hit us a lot. I think in future, the alcohol ban is going to affect us a lot, because a lot of our sponsorships, a lot of the income, a lot of the money that goes towards staging the events that we do come from alcohol suppliers. One of the challenges we're going to face, I think, at the time, is how much money those alcohol suppliers have to be able to put into these events again, and whether events are on the forefront of what they actually do. So obviously those two and the limitation, which I would say would be the big three things that I think are going to affect us going forward and affect. So I think a lot of the sound companies, who are very much staff and equipment intensive, have really battled. I would say 50 to 60% of them have liquidated and closed their doors, sold up equipment to make sure they're getting some kind of an income in. And then obviously all the staff that go with that, who are largely temp and freelance staff, have found themselves without any work whatsoever. As a company, I suppose we're in the fortunate position where we're very staff light. There are 3 of us in the company, and we don't employ the sound guy and the freelance guy and the fencing guy and the toilet guy. We employ the company, who obviously does that and contracts a lot of that stuff out. So I think those service providers who've got a fair amount of staff and equipment are the ones that are really being hard hit. A large number of them have certainly cancelled and liquidated. So I think for us as an industry, whether it remains as it is or whether the lockdown gets worse, actually doesn't make a difference to us, because we can't work now, which means we can't work later. I think the challenge for us is the ability to plan. And I was asked a few days ago around how you would equate it to starting the Comrades Marathon, but not knowing how far Comrades is, where the water tables are, and who you're competing against. So you start the race, you could be running 500 kilometers, you could be running 1 kilometer. So you have no idea how to pace yourself, you have no idea when to drink at water tables, you have no idea when hills or downhills are coming. And that's essentially where we are. We have no idea if the government is going to make it possible for people to attend events, that they have to have the vaccine. If they have to have the vaccine, how many of our potential marketing pool are going to decide not to have the vaccine, which obviously limits our clientele. And then above that is, do we then have to test everyone before we come into a venue as well? So for us, there's just so many uncertainties at the moment that it becomes impossible to sell a ticket or to make anything. No, and I think that's one of the tough things. If we look at Europe, for example, a lot of the European countries are saying to festivals and music concerts, go ahead and plan for your season. If it gets cancelled, then we'll put together an insurance fund which covers your costs. And we're certainly not in that position as a country. That obviously, being a third world country overall, that would be a luxury that certainly wouldn't be afforded to us. I think the thing that really hurts us is the artists and the actual creators. Yes, we put Splashy on and we put music concerts on, but we wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't musicians. And there's been very little support given out to the musicians themselves. And I think that's probably the most disappointing part from us, is that those guys who rely on 2,000-3,000 rand a month, sort of 500 rand gigs, are absolutely getting nothing at the moment, and that's the real desperation of the situation. I would say in terms of face value and stuff that is assured, very, very little. One thing we're working hard with on government is to try and separate music concerts from sporting events and other types of events. So, we certainly feel as a company that we can safely, within all regulations, for example, stage a running race of 1,000 people, and that kind of an event and gathering should be considered very different to a music concert of 1,000 people, purely because a music concert is shoulder to shoulder and very high likelihood of transmission. Whereas a running race, you can do two separate or a separate start and finish. You can batch people in groups of 10 or 20, and you can stage it over the whole day. So we're really pushing with government to try and separate out events and specific events and allow the events industry to return. But the reality is for us, I think that 2021 is going to be a matter of survival, with the hope that come the end of the year, the majority of people have received a vaccination and that government can start easing regulations to allow us to start to operate again. And I think, events will bounce back. And if you look at the Spanish flu and the spending that took place after the Spanish flu, people will spend on experiences and gathering again. It's human nature. People want to get together, people want to see people. So there will be a place for us. We just obviously can't say when that place will take place again. Well, to give you an idea, we would normally do 42 events in a year. So if I talk from March, beginning of March last year, which is essentially when restrictions were placed on events, through till now, end of January, we've managed to do 3 events. So, you're looking at just less than 10% of what we would normally be doing in a year. And that translates into all those service providers. So the toilet janitor, the fencing guy, the security man, the medics, all those kind of people. When it comes to the eventing part of that business, which for a lot of those guys is the majority, only 10% of that work is managed to go through, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a tough question because obviously these kind of protocols haven't been listed yet. And I think for us, with the events that we have done so far, our own personal moral and ethical judgment has been, how do we ensure that the risk of someone attending is the same risk that they would experience otherwise in a day-to-day operation? So when that same person who came to our event the day before went to Gateway Shopping Centre, went down to the beachfront, went and had coffee at the coffee shop and then went home. If we assess that risk that they are prepared to expose themselves to each day, we need to make sure that at our event, they don't at any stage feel or experience any greater risk. So that's always the litmus test for us when we're doing stuff. Obviously, hygiene is a really important part, and I think it's something that has changed the world forever. So you will have sanitizing in place forever. I think face masks will be mandatory for many years to come in tight, closed spaces. So yeah, I think the reality is that there's going to have to be a shift from the consumer. And I think also because we've had pretty much no music events or no social experiences for the last 10 months, I think the consumer also needs to understand that those experiences now are going to cost a little bit more, but they are also going to appreciate those so much more now because they've been taken away for some time. So if we think of a Splashy ticket, for example, we've always prided ourselves on the fact that it's about 650, 700 Rand, which is the cheapest festival ticket, 4 nights camping, works out at about 38 cents per artist that performs on site. And the reality is that that's seriously good value for money. And we might find in the future for us to still be able to run these kind of festivals that a 650 ticket might end up becoming an 800 Rand ticket. And I think the consumer hopefully will understand where those costs are coming from and also appreciate the very special experience they're getting at these events, which necessitates the 800 Rand cost. Yeah, John, no, I mean, listen, the campaigns I think are great and they bring awareness, but I'm not sure they bring awareness to the right people who are decision makers. The reality is the decision makers are going to follow international trends. We're not going to be world trendsetters when it comes to reopening events again. So, our second wave was sort of a month to 6 weeks after Europe, and I can see us doing exactly the same in most things, is that Europe would change their regulations, after which we would take the lead from that and the World Health Organization to change regulations. So I think really from my side it is what it is. We're going to come back at some stage. We can't commit to our clients and our fans when that's going to be, but all that we ask is that when that does happen, that we get the support from fans who always used to support Splashy, and always used to support music at the lake and all the other events that we do, because the industry and the people involved in the industry, the artists, the service providers, the temporary part-time freelance workers, yeah, they're going to need everyone's support when we are able to operate.